Flo and Ramon are not only two of the most important residents in Radiator Springs, but when we met them, they were also the only couple left in town. With Ramon operating the last body shop and Flo owning the only gas station around, it was clear that without them, Radiator Springs could have fallen apart when the town was bypassed by the interstate. But they fought for the community through all of the hardships and rough times, and I think the reason they did all of that was because these two fell in love in Radiator Springs. And today I want to explain how these two crazy cars came together and why I believe their relationship saved the town. This is the love story of Flo and Ramon. Now, their whole story begins with Ramon and his first love, art. You see, we're told in his bio that at the beginning of his life, the only canvas he had to create with was himself. So every day he would repaint his body. He wanted to push the boundaries of what he could do because he wanted to show that the automotive body could be a vehicle of expression. And inevitably, all of that work transformed him into a true magician of paint and metal. With all of these skills, Ramon decided he'd try to start offering his artistic services to other vehicles. And since there was no better way to service customers on their travels than to set up shop on the Mother Road, he decided to build Ramon's House of Body Art in the town of Radiator Springs. And quickly, the business became a success. Radiator Springs was just a bustling town in the 1950s when Ramon arrived. In fact, his shop became so busy that Ramon ended up needing to hire an old friend named Derek Decals Dobbs to help him provide touch-up jobs and facelifts. But the truth is that Decals didn't just paint cars, he also painted murals. And according to the Cars DVD bonus features, in his spare time, Decals even did a few murals around town, including the one that declared Radiator Springs to be a happy place. Now, while Ramon was establishing himself in Radiator Springs, according to a deleted scene from Cars and the book, The World of Cars, which I'll leave linked for you down below if you'd like to check it out yourself, over in Detroit, Michigan in 1957, Flo joined the most popular touring car show in the country called the Motorama. They were a group that traveled from state to state displaying the newest and most advanced concept cars ever built. It was the hottest event everywhere they went, and Flo was one of the beloved Motorama girls. She was talented, famous, glamorous, and pampered at all times. Everywhere she went, she was recognized and she was on posters, and she even developed her own fan club. But there was a downside to her exciting life. Unfortunately, Flo was also isolated. She was never allowed to go have fun with the girls or explore the cities they visited because her chaperone, Miss Victoria, ensured her girls remained in pristine condition at all times. They couldn't have a nick or a scratch on their bodies, which meant that Flo was relegated to living in the back of a nice transport truck named Mitch and inside the carvention centers they went to for their shows. But one day, while traveling west, Miss Victoria blew out her transmission trying to keep the girls in line, which forced them to stop in the tiny town of Radiator Springs. While Doc Hudson repaired Miss Victoria and kept her overnight for observation, the Motorama girls were free for the first time in forever, and they took full advantage of the freedom. Now, I have to say it's kind of weird that Doc Hudson was already working in town before it was bypassed, since there was actually another doctor who ran the clinic in town when that event took place. But maybe Doc was just working under the owner of the Ornament Valley Mechanical Clinic. As a car who didn't want to be noticed, it makes sense he probably wouldn't want to roam around when there were so many visitors in town. Either way, not exactly sure, but I figured it was an important thing to note. Now, during Flo and the rest of the girls' wild night in Radiator Springs, they drank high-test gasoline, got new tires from Luigi, purchased some souvenirs from Lizzie, and danced and played until they inevitably ended up in Ramon's. Now, one of the girls got a pinstripe, another one got some flames on her, but when Ramon saw Flo, the story goes that he threw down his airbrush, and she asked,
"What's the matter? You're too good to paint me?" I said, "No, baby. You're too good for me to paint. I can't touch a classic."
From that moment on, Flo and Ramon were inseparable. That night, they cruised up and down Main Street together, and they even caught the sunrise over Willie's Butte that morning. Now, at first, it seemed like their magical time together was only going to last one night. But when Flo discovered she had a scratch on herself before their caravan departed, she raced back to Ramon. But instead of simply getting that scratch fixed, Ramon let her know that he didn't want to let her go. Flo was an extremely desirable vehicle. She could have had her pick of any car in any state, but she fell for Ramon's charismatic, smooth-talking ways. So she decided to stay in town, and soon after, Flo and Ramon were married. Similarly to how Doc, Sally, and Lightning all inevitably made Radiator Springs their home when they were ready to slow down the pace of their lives, Flo did the same thing. But it didn't slow her down too much. After moving into Radiator Springs, she purchased the gas station next to Ramon's shop, which she named Flo's V8 Cafe. Presumably, Flo was able to do this using some of her Motorama Girl money, which allowed her to turn the gas station into a popular destination. And for a while, it seemed like the couple had it all. They had love, they each had their own successful businesses, and they had a wonderful community around them. I mean, Ramon was so busy that he didn't even have time to paint himself each day. Apparently, he barely had time to paint himself each year, but unfortunately, that wouldn't be the case forever. When the interstate arrived, Radiator Springs fell off the map. The town fell into disrepair, and for many, many years, there wasn't a lot of hope. But Flo and Ramon weren't willing to leave their home behind, especially if it meant that the rest of the residents couldn't be there without them. Sure, Fillmore had his organic fuel, but Flo's gas was the main way the majority of the cars in town fueled up. They needed Flo and Ramon to stay, and they were willing to. Radiator Springs was where they met. It's where they wanted to be, and they weren't going unless they completely went out of business. As long as their friends were crazy enough to stay in town with them, they were willing to push through the tough times. And I gotta say, that must have been so hard. Flo and Ramon were each attempting to sustain their own businesses through decades of downturn with no end in sight. I know for myself, just having a year or two of this YouTube channel earning less and having views go down overall can be extremely stressful and emotionally taxing. So operating on faith for so long is insane. There's just so much out of all of our control, and I'm sure for a long time it didn't seem like Radiator Springs was the best bet for them, but they got through it because they had each other and their friends, and eventually it all paid off. When Lightning McQueen arrived in Radiator Springs, he fell in love with Sally, the residents, and the town, just like Flo had all of those decades before when she came and met Ramon. And suddenly, Radiator Springs was put back on the map. When Lightning announced that their little community on Route 66 was going to be the location of his new racing headquarters, that decision led to a huge wave of new visitors. There were suddenly racing fans and legendary race cars coming from across the globe to visit, especially when they began hosting massive events like the Radiator Springs Grand Prix. And of course, when all of those cars came to town, they all fueled up at Flo's. And as the official body artist of Lightning McQueen himself, Ramon had his fair share of customers too, flooding in as Lightning became one of the most decorated race cars of all time. Flo and Ramon persevered through all of the hard times, even when it seemed like there was no way forward. But they came out on the other side, and I think the reason they were able to do that was because they had each other. From the moment they fell in love, they have been together ever since, and nothing is going to stop them. But what do you think about Flo and Ramon's love story? Do you think they saved Radiator Springs? Let me know down in the comments, and if you'd like to see more Pixar videos like this one, subscribe for more, especially now that Inside Out 2 is in theaters. I'll be making a lot of videos about that movie starting next week because in my opinion, it's so good. It's really awesome. I really recommend it. I resonate with it even more than the original movie, and I just think it's so good. So stay tuned for all of that. But until then, I'm Isaac Carlson. Thanks for watching and have a magical day.